Hi, welcome to BitIgnite. I am Jaskaran and I'll be your host for this session. A lot has been being talked about in the corporate world today about diversity, inclusion, equity. Um, Comparisons are being made between the organizations, and organizations are getting ranked to see who's doing better, how are people faring, and every organization is trying to put their best foot forward. A diversity and inclusion index ranks top 100 publicly traded companies globally with the most diverse and inclusive workplaces, and measures it across 24 matrices, which are divided into four categories of diversity, inclusion, people development, and also news controversies. While a lot of work has been done on diversity piece per se, I feel that the key ingredient of making workplaces more happy is inclusion, and is also probably the most difficult one to master. So joining me today are two seasoned HR professionals, Prachi and Soumya, to explore and understand inclusion better. So let me introduce both of them to you. Prachi Rastogi is the DNI leader for IBM APAC. She has experience in human resources across healthcare, ITES, private equity, and technology industry. Her current role involves ensuring gender balance at executive roles, inclusion of LGBT plus community, and an accessible environment for people with disabilities. She is responsible in creating a climate that fosters respect for differences, stimulates innovation, encourages collaboration, and allows employees to work productively in a culturally diverse environment. Apart from her day job, she facilitates mindfulness sessions in the corporate world and educational institutes. She believes that collaboration amongst humans and increased awareness is what will help us survive and succeed in the coming times. The next panelist is Soumya. Soumya Santosh is currently CTS Tech's Chief Human Resource Officer with global responsibility for human resources. Soumya is responsible for an overall employees of CTS Tech extending to 5,000 plus employees in 5 countries. In her 11 years with CTS Tech, Soumya has distinguished herself as a trusted advisor, a change champion, and a devoted employee advocate, all leadership qualities that help unlock the potential of citizens, as the employees of CTS Tech are called. And they've also won the prestigious Workplace Award in 10 years in a row, which I'm sure is not a small feat. While she's not neck deep in work, Soumya enjoys spending time with her 2 daughters and husband. Welcome, Soumya and Prachi.
Thank you so much.
So let me ask you my very first question. What does inclusion mean to you? Let's start with you, Soumya.
Thank you. Great that I'm starting first. As a disclaimer, I just wanted to say Prachi is a pro in this area. At CTS Tech, we've just about started our journey on DNI initiative. Though we think that inclusion is something that we do as a part of our culture, it's already there. But if I have to define it and say what it means for us at CTS Tech and for our citizens, it is just getting yourself to work and respecting people for who they are and allowing them to flourish.
Prachi, what does inclusion mean to you?
Thanks, Jess, for the question. It's a small question and it's a very significant one and means a lot, especially for a company like IBM, which started diversity and inclusion 110 years ago. And we've not really taken that for granted till now. So we are still taking baby steps each day to be more inclusive, never taking that for granted that we started many years ago. So for us, it means that every employee is able to bring their whole selves to work and make a positive impact on the society. So both are equally important to us.
Yeah, so I think what I hear both of you say, it's like, if an employee can get their whole self to work, that is what probably will make the workplace more inclusive. And there was a study done by McKinsey to understand, how inclusion matters. and which aspects of inclusion, the employees regard as significant. And, even though overall sentiment on diversity, people were like pretty much positive, 52% of the respondents were positive on it. But when it came to inclusion, only 29% of the population felt that they were, they felt included in the organization, or had that feeling of inclusion in them. And this probably, is the problem that a lot of organizations face. Hiring diverse talent isn't enough. It is the workplace experience that shapes whether people remain in the organization or whether they thrive in the organization. So let me ask you this, Prachi. How can we promote inclusivity at workplace? How does one make inclusion a habit?
Yeah, so it's a habit of staying in habits that we have, as humans, and it's very interesting. So just putting it very simply as a response here is, we do three things as pillars for inclusion. One is leadership responsibility, which clearly means that diversity and inclusion can't be and should not be HR's responsibility alone. It has to be the people who are in business taking accountability for who they are hiring, how our employees feeling, and what is our internal and external eminence. So leadership responsibility, and we use a lot of AI for that. So which means that we look at how many people are we hiring, at what level are we, do we have enough gender balance, do we have people from other communities? Similarly, how many are we promoting, and how many are attriting? Who are the people who are attriting more than others? So really keeping a very close look on that, and that is how we equip our leadership as well. Number two is the ecosystem. How do you work on the ecosystem where the policies and programs that we make at the top really translate into something meaningful for employees at the ground? So even if, let's say, a transgender person goes to the bathroom, how the janitor responds or interacts or looks at the person when the person uses let's say a gender neutral bathroom, there is communication which is happening without words. So even that we ensure that it's trained and it's more informed. The third important pillar for us, and that's a suggestion for other companies as well, external eminence. It's very easy to be very passive and non-discriminatory. Like, okay, we are doing good, we'll keep quiet and we'll do our work. But that's not enough. We have to be bold as an ally. And this is the time. There's so much turbulence socially, politically, around the world. So it's really important to be an upstander, standing up for people who are being marginalized, and that, just being inclusive, embracing and celebrating of the person standing, sitting next to you. So these are the three pillars we think of, I think very, very important to build an inclusive culture each day, every day at work.
Yeah, and I agree, inclusive work cultures can only be built once the leaders start to act in that manner, and you start building that culture. But what are the tasks that I could do on a daily basis, small little things which will help kind of, exponentially grow that culture, or that feeling that, I as a person who is different from the rest is equally important or acknowledged in the organization? What can we do, the small steps?
Very, now we're really going into details. I love that. As a very first step, what we can do is be inclusive at home, which means that if I'm a man and I've traditionally only seen women in the kitchen, I start being inclusive and I equally take responsibility in the household chores. That is the first very step. I can be the CEO of the organization or whatever I am. I need to start at home. I need to be, I can be inclusive of the child next to me. Even asking the child what she needs, or what, rather than just giving her food when I want to, asking her as well, that what is it that you want to have today, when I'm looking at the menu or when I'm deciding to cook something at home, or just being inclusive of the different thought processes or thoughts that family members have. So this is the very first step that we can have. Unless it starts at home, it's very difficult to suddenly change your personality and be highly inclusive at work. The other thing that we do when we come to work is that, one thing is just that it's very easy to force people to hire diverse resources. So you can have a very diverse team, which looks very different but sounds exactly the same. So I have 5 women, 5 men who talk the same language the same way. It's really important to make sure that as an employee, as a human being, I welcome different views and I expand my mindset. And that can happen even in the playground. Somebody's saying something, somebody's saying something. One is to get highly perplexed with that and say, oh, no, 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 I need to go with my plan. Or say, okay, you have a great idea, let's explore that. So just doing simple things, and it really just, and I love what you asked, that what can I do as a human being? Just one thing. Whatever I'm doing or whoever I'm talking to, give your best to that person. It doesn't matter whether you are interacting with the help at home or the CEO at work. Give that person your full attention.
Yeah, be present and be mindful.
Yeah.
Soumya, would you want to add something? How can we build these small habits of making a workplace more inclusive?
I think it was so beautifully put by Prachi already. For CTS Tech, I'll say that the inclusion starts with the leaders, the personality that Rizwan and Jagdish have, and the way they actually, as Prachi said, interact with the senior most person. So there's one thing, if you come to CTS Tech and ask anybody, you will never know what the designation of the person is, because you can't make out. So usually, let me take an example to share this, right? So Rizwan usually sits in the cafeteria at random at a table. And once the two employees asked them, which project are you on? So he said, I'm the CEO. So I'm putting it very, very, in a very, very brief manner to say that that's the kind of culture we have. We have consciously done small things. We do not have a structured program. We do not have a tracking mechanism. We don't have any of that as yet. But the conscious, unwritten rule is that if we have contractors in the organization, you will come into CTS Tech and you will never know who's an employee, who's a contractor, because for us, everybody is an employee. Everybody brings value to the organization in whatever role and part that they do. So this is something that, as as part of HR, we've done our analysis to figure out what is the compensation that we pay for women and male. We said that actually that's an interesting fact. This is a 12-month-old data, but women are paid more than men at CTS Tech. So those are the stuff. So when we went into remote working, we just realized that this was the right time to actually put the wonderful. We truly believe we have a beautiful culture. We just wanted to put it all together and start our journey on D&I initiative. And that's somewhere we're working with you guys for it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pleasure working together. But, I completely agree. I work for an organization, and this is like 10, 12 years ago, where D&I was still not the buzzword. And everything that everyone is trying to do today, I think we just did it organically, and it just happened. And you felt that you belonged. We just didn't want to change. I was there for the longest time. And it was all because of the culture. There was no matrix that we were following, no framework which were getting administered. But yeah, I think it's just the workplace. So let me ask you this question, Soumya. What or who inspires you or inspired you to look at inclusion as a career stream?
At CTS Tech, I think it was just a gradual move for us. I mean, we, as I said, we did not, like, as you rightly said a minute earlier, right? We did not have anything structured. Every 30-day feedback, 180-day feedback said the culture was great, but we never had defined culture at CTS Tech. We did that last year for the first time after 15 years of the inception of the organization, saying that, okay, let's define it, because we are in a remote environment and people are joining us in a remote format. At least we need to ensure we tell them what we stand for and measure it in a way to see that, okay, is the same culture being followed? It's very different when we are there. So the journey started last year, and the way the entire definition and assessment of the culture culminated, it was beautiful, meaningful. And, we just decided that once we have this, obviously the leader said that we definitely have to focus on D&I. And that was just a gradual transition to looking into it.
Prachi, who or what inspires you?
So I assume this is a personal question of,
Yeah.
Okay. So 11 years at IBM, I've I basically only did the HR business partner role for various businesses in IBM. And 3 years ago, my manager spoke to me about leading diversity and inclusion for India. And I wasn't really sure, I didn't know what would it mean, what would it entail, and if I really want to go out of the mainstream. At that time I thought this is mainstream, doing an HR business partner role. But just one thing led to another, and I thought, okay, let me just because IBM anyways promotes a lot of role changes, and if you want to take a senior expanded role later on in life, it's really important at IBM to do various variety of roles. I thought, okay, maybe I do it for 1 year or 1.5 year, and we'll see. And here I am, 3 years, and I've got now, of course, the role has expanded. I do APAC now. Just what it's done to me is magic. I It has changed me as a human being. It is changing me every day. I 3 years ago as well, I thought I'm pretty inclusive and with an expanded mindset. And today I feel I'm learning so much each day, and there's so much to learn more, because I'm looking at my own biases. I'm looking at my own unconscious behavior. All that work that we do at a large level with the lakhs and lakhs of people that we have at the workplace, that comes later. The most important movement which has happened, transformation that has happened, that I wake up and I don't have to be forced to think what I need to do at work. My mind automatically wants to see what are the things that I can do to be more inclusive myself. What are the things that I can do to make IBM more inclusive? So it's really, inspiration that wells up within, because you see good change in your life.
So, Prachi, could you share with us some details about, what is IBM doing to be seen as a more inclusive workplace by its employees?
By its employees,
Yeah.
internally. So we do a variety of things. The most important thing is we want to be the most trusted. I mean, we are one of the most trusted. We want to better at it. We want to be the most trusted technology partner of the century. And for that, we know that it's really important to be very, very inclusive internally as well as externally. And of course, it starts at home. So we're trying to be as inclusive as possible. What it means is go diverse, look diverse, sound diverse, make an ecosystem where employees feel totally okay. People from the LGBT plus community, people with disabilities, we actually call them people with diverse abilities. They have an accessible environment. Now with everything that happened last year with Corona and the political social unrest around the world, we knew that things are not going to be the same ever. So 99% of our people are working from home, and switching that suddenly, of course, we had a flexible environment before as well, but switching that to 99.9% people working from home took us a lot of work, because we know that we have a sizable number of people from the LGBT plus community working, and we knew that especially in India, for example, not every home is a safe space. A lot of people were finding safe space at work. So at that time, we did what was needed. We created groups, we created a lot of workshops, we created safe spaces for people. Similarly, accommodation for people with disabilities, which was possible and easy for us at work, we actually created that at their homes in no time. And we knew that for women, especially in this part of the world, no matter what we say, a lot of responsibilities go on women's shoulders. So how do you make sure that they feel included? So a lot of programs were built around that as well. Awareness, work from home pledge, where leaders were completely educated that it's okay to not be on camera all the time. Don't directly force people. It's okay if a kid is jumping around at the background. If it's okay if you hear the pressure cooker. So all of these things were normalized, so much so just that we had a town hall. I still can't forget it. And our Indian the CEO for India, he got a video made of all the senior most leaders at IBM India with what they were doing apart from work at home, which meant that we saw our marketing officer doing dishes, we saw our business head mopping the floor, and it was just so good. So normalizing these things which were completely different before Corona. These are things that you have to do on a regular basis, responding to the times you're living in. That is very important. Also important at the same time, we've realized just that we are not really pushing inclusion down people's throat. We have no program which is a mandate on DNI. It is a business and a human imperative. So very important, if you want to be innovative and creative, we need to have a diverse team. Also important that don't just say diverse team and have women only at the middle and the lower level. Tell me what your gender balance is at the top. That is what matters. At least when you are a few years in the in DNI, then it's not just enough to be diverse at the lower and middle level. How many women do you have, or how many people from other communities do you have at the top who are taking decisions? And how many people are actually out, let's say, from the LGBT plus community? You have the right policies, right programs. You have to make sure that your line managers are completely trained. Are your line managers trained for women who are coming back from maternity, or are they still expressing milk in the toilet, which many companies, in many companies I see women doing? Do you have lactation rooms? If you don't, then these are things that you need to think about. You need to make sure that your line managers know that it's not that women do not want to do front end roles after they come back from maternity, but do you have the right policies, programs to keep an equitable environment? Just one last example is that just before Corona, we launched this policy that all mothers, new mothers, can, when they come back, they if they want to travel for work, we will take care of the stay and the flight of the travel cost for the caretaker and the baby, because the baby they're still lactating. And then a couple of months later, we thought that no, that's not fully inclusive. It was really appreciated. My God, we were like full of, we were raining, the praise was raining. And then we thought, no, it's not inclusive, because by saying that only mothers can use it, we're basically saying that mothers are responsible for taking care of the little baby. So we thought, oh, all gender, same gender partners can go, and fathers can go, and if they want to travel with their little child, we pay for the caretaker and baby and stay and travel. What it did was the travel increased, of course, for more women, but the kind of trust it built. And we are not a small company. We're talking about, like, a lakh people just in India. And it was basically on trust, because there's no way to do a detailed check on everything. And we said, okay, we trust our managers to do that for their teams, and go for it. And the kind of return we got in terms of people's trust is amazing. A long answer to a short question, just that there's endless work that can be done to be more inclusive.
No, and I completely agree. And a lot of my conversation with some of our clients has been that, in our want to be more inclusive to, to women, are we alienating the support system that we get as men, as allies? Everything is women, women, women. What happens to the poor man? Nobody's focusing on him, or the other so many subsections of the society or your workforce that you would need to look into. Yeah. Anything, Soumya, that you would want to add that CTS Tech is doing to create a more inclusive workplace?
I mean, very, very little that I can add. So we do hire. In fact, in my own team, I have around 3 people who are differently abled. And as Prachi said, it became very difficult to work with them when we moved remote. So there was a lot of effort that we had to do to ensure that both of us are comfortable and then get this entire ecosystem working for us, and it's worked beautifully. So there is that. There's a lot of emphasis that we're giving to ensuring that we hire women who have taken a break and then trying to rehire them back into workforce. So the small little stuff that we're doing, which is all over the place, I think the effort currently is to just put that all together and give it a direction.
So let me ask you a question, Soumya. ERGs are becoming key in building inclusive workplaces. How do we go about launching or growing the employee resource groups? Do they form organically, or do you think the HR team needs to create it? How do you get employees excited about them so that they engage? And and we've seen ERGs being used for multiple other things, but this is becoming a more prevalent practice when it comes to diversity and inclusion.
Yeah. So again, I'm telling you, we don't have a D&I initiative launched. So there is no group as such at Citius Tech, which is very focused on the D&I initiative, but we do use Yammer as a platform, and that's something which people take to very easily. It's a very easy platform to share, create groups. So we've got a lot of groups and clubs which people with similar interests get onto, especially moms, who've just come back to work, then they'll have a group to discuss and figure out how things, work for them. Women leaders are there. These are, again, created by employees, managed by employees, not, manned by HR as of now. But yes, we usually, if we find that there's any traction on a particular group, then there is one HR spot on the group just to ensure that we facilitate and add value to it. Other than that, these groups are something more like just bouncing board for people to just share their thoughts. It could be as simple as a book club, which is, or what they're watching currently on, on things. So those are the kind of groups.
I think it's important because that's how people start bonding with each other. It doesn't have to be on a serious topic. It's about, do I have enough touch points in the organization for my engagement to be high, and then for me to feel comfortable about talking about something that's important to me. So have you seen employees coming back and telling you that these groups are working, or that it doesn't really have an impact?
See, I really don't know, because we've not actually checked. We know that people are keeping themselves engaged. There are tech groups, there are non-tech groups, there are fun groups. But at least to give you one example of what's worked, Yammer is a place where we get to know what our employees are telling us, and they're pretty vocal on that platform. So we launched a particular software when we went ahead and started work from home, right, in early 2020, to ensure that we, track productivity. And we were quite skeptical. We said, should we do, shouldn't we do? But, clients may ask us, so let's try it out. So as a trial basis, we sent it, and we got like literally backlashes from employees saying that they were not comfortable with it. And, to the credit of the management, we brought it down in an hour, right? We said that we've heard you, what you're saying makes complete sense. So there's no doubt that we always trusted our employees, because we had work from home even before the work from home model worked due to the pandemic. So we said, let's just roll it back. So it's really worked to connect with employees and get the voice of the employees heard. Yeah, works for us.
Yeah. Prachi, have you seen any successes with the ERGs at work?
Yeah, we call them BRGs, and absolutely really important to have a group of people, mostly led by people from the community, women, LGBT plus, PWDA, veterans, because they know the issues, the marginalization, the inclusion that's really much needed on the ground for the community, and they are actually great for reverse mentoring us, people who are taking decisions for them, or to build in organizations which is welcoming of them. So at IBM, they do a lot of work on a, so for example, they're already now working just on the plan for 2022, saying what is the BRG going to achieve in the next 12 months in 2022 for the community. So really educating leaders, educating line managers, doing a lot of events to raise awareness, seeing what the problems are. Just to give you an example, in Corona, we got a request from the LGBT plus BRG, we call it the Eagle Group, that we need a thing called listening circle, because there's so much happening formally. We want an informal circle where people are just, it's optional for people to join, and people just talk heart to heart about what they're going through, and others just listen. And it became one of the most sort of loved programs for a lot of us. A lot of managers started joining, a lot of allies started joining. And this idea, this plan, the execution, all of that was managed by the BRGs. So they're absolutely essential for any workplace who wants to be more diverse and inclusive.
Yeah, and I think I like the idea that you talked about reverse mentoring. For you to form any kind of policy, you need to know what the policy needs to be and how it will be looked at. So that kind of gives you firsthand
information even before you kind of formulate something. So yeah, I think ARGs are probably a more easier way to have your ear on the ground.
Yeah, like water could, just to add on, right? Like to have a water cooler conversation, just to add on to Prachi, we have something called Campfire, which works very well. So Campfire is just like a group where you can just come on, all employees come, share stories. Because this was towards Halloween, it was around the theme Halloween. So people, painted their face, came and said personal, spooky stories. It is just wonderful to see 300, 400 people come onto the group and engage, which, yeah, otherwise is very difficult to pull off.
Yeah. Soumya, you mentioned that that your organization is doing some work around returning women, and in India we know that about 48% of Indian women quit their jobs because of family commitments, and a lot of these women want to come back. What challenges do you feel they need to work through, and what would your suggestion be to them?
I'll give you a personal answer for that. Honestly, I feel that if you should be very, very passionate to come back to work, it should be a decision made by every woman that I want to get back to work, and then it will happen. To give my own personal story, I think when I had my first child, and it was 8 months, and I broke my leg, and hell broke loose, and I just wanted to quit. I said, I'm like done, right? And my mother called me. She said, I'm taking the baby for 2 months. Take your crutches, get to work, and you don't quit, right? So that was the kind of, that's the kind of, there are days, I'm sure that every single, I have, ultimate respect for people who are working mothers, but I think there are days that you pull your hair, but this becomes second nature. So they have to work on a plan of how to get back, and they should have the kind of flexibility at work to help them to get back. Give them all the support and help in as an organization, and I'm sure at least that's what we do at CTS Tech.
So the biases that these women would face, and I've come back. I took a break, not because of any issues with maternity, but I was just wanted to take a break. I told my CEO that I just want to sit at home, watch TV, go to the salon, do PTMs. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to explore that. So when I did decide to come back, there were struggles, and I'm sure people saw me very differently as compared to when they knew when I was a working professional for about 18, 20 years. How do you help the organization and the returnee woman deal with these biases and stereotypes? They're part and parcel of the returnee journey.
It's about how you deal with them, because we don't make a big deal of it at all. So even if it's appraisals, right? Increments are not withheld just because a person has gone on a break or a maternity leave, or has gone on a break because of ill health and has taken a sabbatical and is returning. It could be a male employee returning due to ill health. We just consider it as a break, and the person is back. So promotions are as usual, appraisal goes on as usual. We've never seen, at least we've not measured it, but we've not seen any kind of a bias or any kind of a thing that will hold back a person who's got back from a maternity or any kind of a break. And that's just the culture that we have at CTS.
Prachi, any tips on how these biases can be curtailed?
By raising awareness both ways, both with the managers who are dealing with them, engaging with them on a regular basis, and women too. So we have a program, because we know that a lot of women in the mid-level or in the middle age, they leave because of marriage or kids or parental responsibilities. So their career identity is actually very weak, for lack of a better word. So strengthening that career identity, expanding their self-limiting thoughts, and saying that strategic networking, or it's really important that you remain at work. You can decide to take a role which is probably not so front-ending if you'd like, but probably, and not to say that taking a sabbatical for watching TV is absolutely a great idea. What we're trying to say is that don't leave because you are unable to manage both. You think that, okay, I'm not able to do it, and therefore I'll do that. So IBM is really creating opportunities for that. There are so many roles. They can go part-time, and a lot of training for line managers, for people who engage with them when they come back. So they face no bias or little, we are mitigating that bias there. So when there is an opportunity being discussed, a woman is not, deleted from the list just because she's just come back from the maternity, or the manager is not supposed to take a decision on behalf of the woman saying, no, no, she's just come back from the maternity, she won't be able to do this. So raising awareness is important. And also all leaders are completely trained. When you, as a leader, I look at the promotion list, or a succession planning for a role. If a role is open, and how many people do we think that can apply for it, how many women do you have? And if you don't have a woman, the leader will question it. Or if you don't have, especially in senior roles, we do that. And nobody can really, there's zero tolerance for it, zero tolerance that people are, if somebody says, no, no, she's just come back from maternity, I mean, she needs to chill, she needs more time. Don't you decide that for her, ask her. And a lot of work on women themselves, because even if you go out for 15 days these days, the world changes at work, right? So when you open your laptop after 15 days, your heartbeat goes up a little bit. So imagine somebody is coming back at least after 6 months, if not more. If people take extended leaves and more. And imagine that person is already going through an imposter. I'm not good enough. I'm far behind. So a lot of work on women as well, that you're not behind, you're in the circle, and we are holding your hand, we're all in a circle. So we're not expecting you to touch the roof when it comes to your performance day one. What we're saying is just give your best, give what you can give. And by giving the flexibility, you want to work from home, you want to work these many hours, you want to work only in the morning, evening, decide that for yourself. But but stay with what uh, challenges your gray cells, challenges your faculties. So while motherhood is so beautiful, it's beautiful to look after parents, it's lovely to get married and execute that role, but don't leave your one part of your life completely.
Yeah.
So a lot of training both hands
Yeah,
helps.
and I agree. I think every woman needs to answer what is it that she wants to do. There is no right or wrong answer, and that answer can also change depending upon a few years here and there. I today may want to just watch TV. Tomorrow I want to be the CEO of an organization, and everything is okay. It's my life. That's what I want to do it. So I think yes, you're right. If I know what I want, then the path will automatically appear. Yeah. My final question to both of you, and I hope I can frame it right, is, few years ago when women's rights became a big topic to be talked about world over, feminism became a dirty word. Everybody would throw the Nari Mukti Morcha on your face, saying, oh, you're saying this because of this, you're saying that because of that. How is it that, what can we do to ensure that this diversity and inclusion doesn't go the Mukti Morcha way, where it doesn't become really a dirty word, and it doesn't, because I've had conversations with women who say, we do not want to be hired as part of a diversity hiring plan, because that's becoming, the bad word. I want to be hired because I have a talent, not because I'm a woman. So what can, and both of you are women leaders, I'm sure you've seen enough and more conversations happening around, why are women being treated differently, why are attorney women, why this, why not a man? And they're all very genuine, correct questions to ask. So how can this not become the dirty world of tomorrow?
If you noticed, I did say in the beginning somewhere that we don't have a mandatory program on diversity and inclusion. So really important to not push people to be inclusive, but show them. Don't tell them. Show them why is it important to be inclusive, and then it's left to them. Then it's the environment. Then you create a framework in the environment like that. That if you're not inclusive, you feel something will pinch you from within. That okay, like you said just in the beginning, that the organization that you were working for was organically inclusive, because love is our true nature, warmth is our true nature. So it's it's natural for us to sort of embrace, celebrate, be warm to other people. But things happen in between because we are trained like that. We are trained that all women, all nurses are women. So when we hear the word nurse, we just go, yeah, okay, it must be a woman. So all of that is because of our training, because of our upbringing, and that can be questioned. So do it with warmth and love. So what happens often, I've seen that people from the diversity and inclusion team, and I'm not saying I'm an exception to it, but I try to be more aware. We become like missionaries. We become like, monitors. Oh, you said that. You didn't ask my pronouns. That's not right. Accusing the other person of not being inclusive, that doesn't help. That never helps, because the other is not trying to be bad to you. The other is just a little unaware, and you probably have read 10 more lines in a book. That's the only difference. So the only difference is you've read a little more and that person has read a little less. So do it with love. Do it, question it with love. Oh, interesting, Prachi, you said this, but do you think we can look at it like that? The, this is the way. So I really hope that everybody who's trying to do their best to be more inclusive listens to this and says, the other who's probably not inclusive right now is only a matter of time. You make that person aware, and that person would like to be inclusive. The other thing is, they're both kind of, let's just talk about women. I come across women who say that we don't want to be promoted if it's a diversity drive, or we don't want to get more money if it's a diversity drive. And I also have women who say, if you don't do anything, that I'm leaving, and I'm diversity. So all kind of, and I'm not talking IBM. I'm just talking, people from across companies. I had the fortune to interact with them. The thing is simple, just that all of this work is happening so that people from the diverse communities do great work. So there is no substitute to hard work. There is no substitute to great work. Just because I'm a woman, it doesn't mean that I'll do less than a man and then I'll be the CEO. No, I have to bloody work hard. What companies are doing is making an equitable environment. If I'm coming back from maternity and I'm lactating, then they are creating a lactation room, because a man doesn't need that. At least as of today, he doesn't need that. Only because of that, we are creating an environment which is equal. It doesn't mean that a woman who's lactating will not work, will work equally, and the matrix are not going to change for that. So both ways we'll have to work here as well, that people from the marginalized community shouldn't take that as an entitlement. And we do a lot of work on that. We do a lot of workshops, a lot of training, a lot of talks on that. That anywhere you see that somebody's saying, oh, I'm from this community, and sorry, it's not working. Or the manager saying a similar thing, oh, I will lose the woman if you don't do something. No, create an inclusive environment, but not take it as an entitlement. The other thing is that if men feel that there's so much happening for women, then we'll also have to tell them that empowering one empowers all. Empowering, when you empower children, for example, you've empowered family. When you've empowered women, for example, you've empowered children, you've empowered your future, you've empowered education, you're raising the society consciousness up. And because a mother would have a very, very big, always a very, very big impact on the child. So it's all about talking and increasing awareness with a little warmth in your heart. If you do it with hatred or cutting the other person out, oh, she's not talking inclusive language, no good. I'm IBM, I'm doing it for 110 years, and she's probably just started it. That's it, I failed then.
Yeah, I agree. Soumya, any thoughts?
Oh, nothing much. I think we're just in the process of benchmarking and figuring out what we want to do and how we want to do. So yeah, taking baby steps towards it. Probably a year down the line, I'll have interesting thoughts to share.
So I've had a wonderful time talking about inclusion with you. And I think from what I understand from both of you, it's actually all just boils down to respecting people. Building as an organization on the habit and reiterating with your leaderships and your behavior on a daily basis that this is what is important. And then also, like Prachi mentioned, somewhere down the line, empowering people to make the right choice and trusting them. So yeah, I think I'm sure the audience out there has picked up lots of cues of what they can take back to their workplaces. So if diversity refers to the traits and the characteristics of what make people unique, inclusion refers to the behavior and the social norms or the organization culture that ensures that people feel welcome. And it is critical that people feel inclusive if any effort that you are making when it comes to diversity actually have to fructify. Otherwise, it's just one of the things that we do because it's a tick in the box. So on that note, thank you so much for joining, and lots of things that I have learned and will stay with me. And hopefully the audience also enjoyed it. Thank you once again, Soumya and Prachi, and we will see you in the next session. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye.
Prachi.
Pleasure to be sharing space with you, Soumya, and you were just so good in making sure that we have the right responses at the right time.
Pleasure was all mine, Prachi. Thank you.